Hello, and January's done. Well done. Round of applause. You made it. We're here. I don't know about anyone else. January was a long month in the best way possible. I spent it with Grace in Canada, and after the fleeting years since 2020, since COVID hit, time has become an ethereal, ungraspable wraith that fleets past me. January slowed down, and as a result, I got a shit ton of reading done. Before we get into it, if you do enjoy, please do like, please do subscribe. Let me know what you read as well. I'd be interested in seeing whether we have any overlaps and also what recommendations or what I should steer away from. So we're just going to get into it. So I'm approaching wrap-ups in a different way. We're going to go through, because I'm now doing the dedicated reviews to the ones that I am definitely interested in. They won't necessarily always be up before the wrap-up video because, you know, time, life, etc., etc. But they will be coming. As a result, we're just going to go through each one, wham bam, thank you ma'am, and then instead look and focus on stats so we can hopefully throughout the year craft a reading year. You know what I mean? The type of reading year that you go, oh. I have objectives, I have things I want to do, and so we're going to go through and see how well I'm doing at them. First book I read was finishing off from the year before. I finished off The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson, fourth book in Era 2 of Mistborn. That's a mouthful. Feels like a Disney Star Wars Rogue One, a Star Wars story. It feels like that. Is that? I know I relate Cosmere to Marvel with Disney stuff a lot, but that seems the biggest example. The Lost Metal I gave a 3.5 stars. I thought it was good. I definitely have issues. I will be a guest on the Words and Whiskey podcast talking about all of Era 1 and Era 2, and we particularly harp on some of the issues we had throughout Era 2. So if you'd like to hear that, I will link it when the episode actually comes out. We're 7 books into a series at that point, so I'm not going to go into it. But as a conclusion, it did a lot of things that I thought were interesting and good. It did a lot of things that make me very scared for where Cosmere is going as a concept and as a universe. Who knows how it's going to go? Change of angle. Let me know how you think about it. Silent Spring was up next. This was a uni read. I'm doing writing the environment module. Silent Spring is from 1962, and it is a non-fiction book around the idea that in the 1950s going into 60s, pesticides were introduced wholesale into the US, the UK, etc., etc. And Rachel Carson released this kind of groundbreaking book revealing the fact that it was poisoning the fuck out of everyone and the wildlife, and it was killing people, animals, it was fucking up the entire ecosystem, and it's terrifying. One of the big takeaways from the book is the fact that throughout generations, these flaws will be compounded and compounded, and so we won't really know the effects of how terrible some of this stuff is. For instance, the rise of hay fever getting more and more prominent, allergies, etc. We don't know what came from these pesticides, and it will only compound and get worse as DNA forms and compounds over time. So it's real fucking scary shit. Nevertheless, I would describe this as, unfortunately, it was meant to be accessible to the layman. However, it reads very much like a science book. I felt like I was reading a textbook at some parts, especially considering I was reading it whilst I was with Grace. And so I'd read out a little bit of it, and this motherfucker would be like, oh yeah, that's that. And then she'd explain the rest of the chapter because she just understands it, being a clever science fucker. And then I'd tediously read the 20 pages that just explained what Grace did in about 20 words. So it was a good read, but it was a tedious read considering it's like 250 pages or so. I gave it a 3.25 stars because whilst I think that the message is it was incredible, it was groundbreaking, and it was absolutely necessary, otherwise we'd be fucked even more. Reading it after 60 years, not quite enticing me the way that it would if they were like, yeah, this shit's happening now. I'd be like, oh, crying in H-Mart. It was a very good memoir. I gave it 3.5 stars. I really don't have much to say. It was an audiobook. that actually took me like a month to listen to. Because I was traveling and stuff, and I was just, I don't know, I just really struggled to listen to it. The story follows our main character, who is the author, evidently. It's about their relationship with their mother, about their relationship kind of around creativity, exploring oneself, and their relationship with of being a daughter of a Korean person and of a an American person, and the kind of loss of identity of not being quite one or the other, being lost in that middle ground, and all of that hit very, very strongly. Migrations by Charlotte McConaughey will be a review coming out on the channel at some point, so if you want to hear more in-depth views, feel free. This is another text that I'm doing for university, and it's a fucking great book. I gave it 4.5 stars. There was no complaining about it from me. Evidently, there was 0.5, but like of complaining. But it's what's being referred to, I think, as like climate fiction. We're following Franny, who is interested in and wants to follow the last migration of the Arctic terns. So this is a kind of it's never specified, but it's a sometime in the future where mass extinction is happening, and these Arctic terns are making their last journey, and Franny is on their way, and it finds her on a boat that is like a fishing boat. But of course, this is a world where there are massive sanctions and people wanting the banning of fishing. It asks a lot of ethical questions around animal treatment, the treatment of the planet. It's a very dark book. I wasn't expecting it to be as dark as it got. It is very bleak in some ways. And the way I describe this book is that it perfectly sets up and subverts expectations. I felt like the book was giving me information just enough for me to make my own inferences based on experience of reading in real life, and then the book twisted some of those in a really satisfying way to make me question myself, question how I view things, etc. And I thought it was a fantastic book. A Game of Motherfucking Thrones. I've done a review on the channel. If you haven't watched it, it'll be linked somewhere. I love the book. I gave it a 4.5 star. I had a couple of problems with it, but they are negligible. I absolutely adored rereading this. I'm not going to go into it too much. Picture of Dorian Gray. Oscar Wilde. Who doesn't love a bit of Oscar Wilde? I've done a review on this on the channel. If you want to watch it, links will be also wherever. It was really good. Really, really, really evocative, and it just hit me right where I needed it in terms of the prose, the characters, the sliminess of the characters. I sometimes need a bit of dirty people kind of doing fucked up stuff, and this did it for me. Upstream by Mary Oliver. I was gifted this by Grace. I've been wanting it for quite a while, and I didn't shut the fuck up about it. So it worked out. This is a series of essays all around the environment and nature, etc. But also, the thing I really enjoyed about it was also about the writing process. The way that Mary Oliver has her creativity, how she approaches it, how she approaches other forms of creativity as well. There are wonderful, wonderful extracts from this. The only issue I had with the book, the only thing that brought it down to a 4-star for me, was that there is a big middle section which are essays about certain writers. And I hadn't read any of them. I'd heard of some of them, but I hadn't actually read any of them. So it was like biography and descriptions of their work and the influence, etc. And I just didn't have the relation. And so I think when I inevitably reread this, I will read their works beforehand to take away the maximum amount I can. Girl, Woman, Other was my first 5-star of the year. I will have a review of this on the channel. Girl, Woman, Other is a series of interconnected short stories that form together to create a mosaic that describes life in Britain, following women of different races, different cultures, also people of different genders, etc., how people identify, different sexualities. It is a wide-spanning book that goes back and forwards through time, telling stories of different families and how they interconnect, different relationships. I thought it was incredible, slapped hard. There's a reason it should have won. It should have won the Booker Prize because the Testaments eats fat fucking asshole. By that I mean mine. I cannot wait to fucking get rid of it from this house. I did not like the Testaments after quite liking Handmaid's Tale. And Girl, Woman, Other should have won that fucking thing. Legends and Lattes also have a review on the channel. Look at fucking me actually reviewing stuff. Travis Baldry lived up to the hype. Great story, fantastic characters, good prose, did everything I wanted it to. Can't complain. Loved it. 4.5 stars. Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan, another 4-star. This was it was nominated for the Booker Prize. I think it made it to the shortlist. And it's this quaint little 100-page novella about this Irish town where we're following a guy who delivers. When is it? It's like set in like the 1920s, if I remember, early 20th century, and it is this Irish guy who is delivering coal and wood, etc., fuel for Christmas, and as a result finds himself observing strange things to do with the church and the nuns that are running the church, odd things happening. And I know that kind of makes it sound like it's going to be this like creepy thriller around religion. It's not. It's way quainter than that. It's very reflective. This man reflecting on his life, how he deals with situations, regrets he has, etc. And I think it did a wonderfully nuanced job. That was a really quick read. It was the winter. It felt real good. It gave that cozy vibe, and I really liked Claire Keegan's writing style. So I will be planning on reading more. But yeah, it was just a nice little quick one. Night Crawling. This is a debut that it picked up quite a bit of heat throughout the year, and I thought it was good. I gave it a 3.75 stars. It follows a girl who is growing up in a place called Regal High. It's this kind of set of apartments, like a projects type thing. She's living with her brother after her father and mother are absent. I won't say for what reasons, etc. That's kind of part of the book. And they are struggling with money. They are being threatened to be kicked out, etc. The brother has a dream of becoming a musician and so isn't interested in getting a job. And we follow our main character as she kind of falls into this. She begins night crawling, so she begins prostitution, etc. It was fucking hard hitting. It was heavy. My only issue with the book is that sometimes the author spoke in vernacular, which is absolutely fine, no problem at all. The issue was when it went from vernacular to heavily descriptive poetic prose, which very much felt like the author thought of this and wanted to put it in because they are a poet as well. And as a result, they lost the voice of the character to have these bits, but it's in first person. So it feels like a disconnect. I felt like a little bit of whiplash in some parts between the author speaking through the character and the character actually speaking. The arc for the month. I read Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This was my second 5-star of the year. This fucking slapped so hard. I'm going to do a review of it, but the review won't come out until closer to the release date of the book. Nevertheless, this was so fucked up and I loved every second of it. After reading and really enjoying Babel, I was so aware because I saw last year, I saw that Yellowface was coming out, I saw it on NetGalley, and I immediately requested it because I saw it was literary fiction. I was like, whoa, this is interesting. I had no idea what even the book was about. I just requested it because R.F. Kuang doing literary fiction. I was like, I need to know what that's going to read like. And it turns out it reads really fucking well. The story follows our main character, who is from first person perspective, is a middling author. They put out their debut, it didn't perform too hot. They have kind of been ignored by their editor and their publisher. They're feeling a bit down about their opportunities. And at the same time, their friend Athena Liu is doing very well. Is a best-selling author, kind of this grandiose character in publishing. Everyone loves her, and she's an Asian author. And one day she rings up our main character and is like, what? I've just got to deal with Netflix. Come have a drink with me and stuff. So they go throughout the day. They have a drink. They get a bit riley. They go back to Athena's apartment. In the process, Athena shows her her latest project, her latest manuscript, which no one else has seen. And during the turn of the night, Athena dies. Our main character takes the manuscript and then throughout the rest of the book changes it and makes it her own and then publishes it herself. This is the most amazing satire and commentary on all parts of the publishing industry, from authors to actual publishers to the treatment of interns and assistants to how they treat around diversity, how they treat different authors, the idea of who gets to tell whose story, the fucking booksellers, book reviewers, book talk, booktubers, everything with a book in it you ever fucking heard of. It rips apart every single one of them in such an amazingly satisfying and fucked up and funny and dark way. I revelled in it. I absolutely revelled in how sharp all of the humour was. It was so quick-witted. So it was audacious to say the least. I can imagine that there are going to be some very unhappy people upon reading this when it comes out. Including, like, I imagine that there'll be some people who take stuff about book reviewing and stuff very personally. It was just fucking great. I'd recommend it wholeheartedly. It comes out in May. Do yourself a favour. Terry Pratchett, A Life with Footnotes, the official biography. That's a title. By Rob Wilkins. I listened to this. I listened to the audiobook. And it was so fucking good. For anyone who likes Pratchett in any way, I would 100% recommend this because it gives such wonderfully inspiring anecdotes and developments. It is, I think Rob Wilkins does a fantastic job of not being afraid of truly portraying Terry Pratchett in the sense of his positives and negatives. The book made me laugh a hell of a lot, especially since it didn't feel like Rob Wilkins trying to write like Terry Pratchett, which is a fear that I would imagine most people would have. Instead, it just felt like they had very similar senses of humour, and that comes across. I cried, I laughed. It was perfect. It was exactly what I wanted. And then I read Tress of the Emerald Sea, Brandon Sanderson, the only author I read 2 books from this month. Tress of the Emerald Sea, first of the Secret Projects Kickstarter thing. I rated it 4.25 stars. I really enjoyed the whimsical nature. The prose was actually extremely funny, which is rare considering it felt so good after coming off Era 2 to actually read something from Brandon Sanderson that had character to it and charm and whimsy and humour. All of this stuff that he kind of, not so much the whimsy, but stuff that he felt like he was going for with Era 2 that missed so hard for me, that in this actually landed. I don't want to give too much away because I know people are still sometimes waiting for their copies to arrive, haven't read it yet. But my only complaint is that it is about like 110,000 words. And for me, I wanted a Stardust-esque. I feel like it would have dealt a lot better with being like 60 to 70,000 words. Purely from the sense of, with whimsical prose, the style he was doing, I think it's better to get in and out. I think the shorter you can tell your story and the more concise and compact, the more hard-hitting you can make it, the more, the beneficial effect it will get from that. And instead, there were parts during the middle that I felt like it was dragging a little. Once again, I really enjoyed some aspects of how he integrated the Cosmere throughout. I thoroughly enjoyed it until the end, where I kind of felt like, this is dabbling in a little bit that thing I'm scared about. But overall, 4.25 stars. Really enjoyed it. Okay, and finally, I listened to Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. Audiobook, gave it 4 stars. Neil Gaiman reading his own books is always wonderful. The guy has such a fucking sultry voice. Really enjoyed it. So if we actually just get into stats now that we've done the quick reviews out the way, just to slip them in, I read 15 books, which is a fucking lot. Like, for me, that is untenable amounts. I think it came down to Grace was at work, I was doing my essays, so I needed something to get out of doing my essays, reading. I think that's what it came down to. So I read 5,307 goddamn pages, with my top moods being emotional, reflective, and adventurous, which sums up the idea that I'm reading a lot of literary fiction and a lot of fantasy. It's that simple. Now, page number. This was a big thing for me going into this year. Last year, over half of my books were under 300 pages. I was rifling through short books because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create a foundation in literary fiction as quickly as I could, which was rifling through short books. As a result, this year I want to push myself further. I want to take longer with some books. I want to take longer with some literary fiction books. And as a result, I think I did a good job this month. So my top one was 300 to 500 pages, which is exactly what I wanted at 47%. Next up is under 300 pages, which is 40%. That also makes sense, with finally above 500 pages being 13%. That is simply that I read Game of Thrones. I'm reading it at a short, a longer pace, should I say, because I am doing the read along. I like to take my time. I like to stretch it over at least half the month, so then people in chat can be involved. If you'd like to be involved in it, join the Discord down below. So I was very happy with page number. I was also very happy with fiction/, non-fiction, with 73% fiction, 27% non-fiction. Like, I typically don't read a lot of non-fiction. It's something I would like to up, hopefully through audiobooks. I really struggle at listening to fiction audiobooks. My mind wanders. Whereas with non-fiction, for some reason it works better. Don't ask me why. I can't explain it, but it does. And so I'm going to try to take advantage of that. Genres, here you can see I'm only going to go through the top two, which is what I would expect it to be, literary and fantasy. They're the two, that's what I'm hitting this year. Classics, I imagine, will pop up because being literary/contemporary, there'll be some modern classics, etc. But really this year, literary and fantasy, I want to just hit hard. Format, I think I fucking slapped format as well, I ain't gonna lie to you. Print, 67%, audiobook, 20%. That is unheard of in my life. I do not do that. And then digital, 13%. That was, I had Tress of the Emerald Sea and I had the arc for Yellowface, so that makes sense. And overall, I got a 4.18 star for the month because I really enjoyed almost everything I read. So overall, I slapped it. I slapped it real fucking hard. I have no complaints. I think this is, if I had this at this level for the entire year, it would be exactly what I'm hoping for throughout the year. So we started off at a banger. Hopefully it will continue. Let me know how your reading month went. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. And as always, have a nice rest of your day.